Helen Keller, blind and deaf since birth, observed that people who are blind disconnect from things. People who are deaf disconnect from people. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, as Toastmasters, we seek to empower globally all peoples, all nationalities, all cultures, all religions, all walks of life. We need to make sure we are including those individuals that are not graced with perfect hearing. The National Institute of Deafness and Other Communication Disorders reports that 17%, 36 million Americans complain of some level of diminished hearing. The Institute also reports 15%, 26 million Americans between the age of 20 and 69 have high frequency loss due to loud noise at work or loud noise during their leisure, during their play, which is the introduction intended to playing music way too loud in our ears. Now understand, I'm not talking about people who are deaf, people who have to rely on sign language to communicate. I'm talking about individuals who have some level of hearing loss that no longer or never did have perfect hearing. A few weeks ago I was at my hygienist getting my teeth cleaned. I've been seeing her well over a decade. She buffed my teeth, leaned back, pulled down her thing that covers her lips, which I hate those things, but anyhow. She pulled that down, and she says, Linnaea, I have something that I need to ask you. Go ahead. She said, my husband and I have noticed we're both beginning to lose our hearing as we grow older. Do you have any tips on how we might be able to stay connected? And I smiled. She sure turned the right person. Because I have been hearing impaired, profoundly hearing impaired, since I was 4 years old. So I have 55 years experience in communicating or not as a hearing impaired individual. So tonight I'm going to share with you some of the insights and strategies, some of the myths that I shared with my hygienist. First, the myths. There are 3 of them, and they are huge. And they are so prevalent, and they stop any possibility of communicating with a hearing impaired person dead in their tracks. Myth number 1. If they're wearing hearing aids, they can hear! Not true. Hearing aids can assist in communicating, helping a person to communicate, but they do not assure it. As a matter of fact, given certain circumstances, hearing aids make hearing worse, such as loud restaurants, loud events like the conference. In situations like that, I simply turn my hearing aids off. I had a gentleman that I was talking to just earlier this week. He got his first pair of hearing aids at about 55, just a couple of years ago. So I asked him, how's it going? He said, well, number 1, he was crushed. He himself was crushed. He fully expected to have the hearing that he enjoyed as a child back once he got those hearing aids. And he realized that was just not going to happen, ever. He expressed extreme sadness at the frustration family and friends were exhibiting towards him because they expected, since he was wearing hearing aids, he ought to be able to hear just fine. Hearing aids assist, but they do not assure communication. The second myth, if they can read lips, they can get the conversation. Those James Bond movies where the spy is looking across the room and reading the lips of their enemy and getting their whole plan. Major myth. Even the most proficient, skilled lip readers only can get 20 to 30% of a conversation if they are just relying on lips. So lips assist, but they do not assure communication. The last is loud yelling. If I yell, they'll hear me. Myth. Go home tonight and turn on your TV and tune into a foreign channel. Make sure the captioning's off and listen. You hear it, right? But do you know what they're saying? No. And if you crank that TV up, are you going to get what they're saying? No. And it's the same dynamics in dealing with the person that has a hearing impairment. The issue is not volume. Louder is better, yes. Screaming, yelling is not. The secret there, the need is clarity, not volume. So, those are the myths. So how do you communicate with a person that has a hearing loss? Well, I have a handout I'm going to give you following my talk that lists 18 tips, insights, strategies for communicating with a person that has a hearing impairment. But I'm going to give you 3. These 3 will be easy for you to incorporate because they capitalize on what we already know and do as Toastmasters. Now I have an acronym for them, it's CPR. So just as CPR saves a person from dying, these CPRs will keep a conversation from dying when interacting with somebody that has a hearing impairment. C stands for close. When you're interacting with a hearing impaired person, you want them close to you. You want them looking at you before you even begin a conversation. Now, many of us certainly have heard about the study that professor at UCLA did that showed a mere 6% of communication is achieved through the spoken word. That like 67% is achieved through body language, and then there was a smaller percentage achieved by facial expressions, tonality. Well, give this fact the benefit to a person that's hearing impaired by letting them observe you deliver your communication. P stands for pause. The pregnant pause. As Toastmasters speakers, we're taught. The pause is important to let our audience hear, comprehend, remember what it is we're saying. Oh, this is so critical for those of us who have a hearing impairment. Let me show you how this works. Suppose I say, or somebody says to me, I'm going down to the store to buy some milk because I want to make ice cream for dessert. What? I think all I got out of that was ice cream. Using it in a way, phrasing it in a way that a hearing impaired person can get it would sound something like this. I'm going to the store. I'm going to get some milk. I want to make ice cream for dessert. Isn't that easier? I mean, even as hearing people, doesn't that just sound easier? It goes down easier. So the pregnant pause, shortening the sentences and spacing them with pregnant pauses, helps the comprehension of speech for a hearing impaired person tremendously. The last is R. Repeat and rephrase. Repeat and rephrase. For me, if I don't get something after a person's repeated themselves twice, I ask them to rephrase it. Let me give you an example. I'm going to the store. Pardon me? I'm going to the store. Pardon me? The market. I'm going to the market. Ah, I got it. Can I go with you? So you see, just these 3 simple tips, things we already know and do as Toastmasters, tweaked just a little bit can make a huge difference in communicating with a hearing impaired person. So Toastmasters. As Toastmasters, we strive and we thrive on empowering people through communication. A person who's hearing impaired has problems communicating. The problem with that is communication is necessary for connection. Connection is necessary for a sense of well-being. It didn't make me cry. For a sense of well-being, self-esteem, happiness. So when interacting with a hearing impaired person, to just give up because it's too difficult is really cruel. It's really a cruel thing to do. Just remember, hearing aids, lip reading, volume don't necessarily help or assure the communication is going to take place. So be aware of that. Use one of the 18 tips in the sheet I'm going to give you, or the CPI tips, to help facilitate the communication with that person that's hearing impaired. When you have that opportunity to interact with somebody that's hearing impaired, you have the opportunity to make that person's day. You are given the opportunity to make that person feel like they count, they matter, because you're making the effort to communicate. You're giving that person the opportunity to feel connected. And the bonus is you get to feel connected to. Madam Toastmaster.